Here's the new word, Freudenfreude, which is taking joy in someone else's joy. This one, I've chosen as I'm saying this. This is where I want us all to be. Like, choose this, right? There was like a meme on Instagram that I sent around that said women need other women in their lives who think they are a big deal. No competition, no backhanded comments, no jealousy, no hate. Just, I love you, I support you, and there's no one on earth like you. Like that kind of energy. Welcome to Salad with a Side of Fries. I'm your host, Jenn Trepeck, talking wellness and weight loss for real life. We're here to clear up the myths, misinformation, bad science, and marketing to teach you how to eat and how to cheat. Are you ready? I'm having salad with a side of fries. Hey, welcome back to another episode of Salad with a Side of Fries. I'm your host, Jenn Trepeck. It is officially February of 2023. Mind-blowing that we are a solid month into this new year. And I'm thrilled to be back with all of you for another episode. And I have to tell you, we're coming up on 200,000 downloads and looking to get there as quickly as possible. We're super close. So check out our Instagram at Salad with a Side of Fries pod to see how we're doing, some reminders for some great episodes that maybe you've missed so that you can go back and check those out. And for today, I have two friends joining me. Both of them have been here before with us. So welcome back, Stephanie and Beth.
Hello.
Hey, everyone. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so that was Beth and then Stephanie. Get acquainted with everybody's voices again. First of all, so grateful that both of you are here because this episode came out of a dinner that the three of us had in December. Do you guys remember?
I do. That was fun. That was a good dinner.
It was a great dinner. Shout out to Danny Meyer, chef at a new restaurant in New York. But anyway, so I can't remember the exact thing that we were talking about, but it was essentially about like social media and how it makes us feel and it plants these ideas in our head. And one of you turned to me was like, this needs to be an episode. So here we are.
I remember talking about it, and I think it came off of like, sometimes, we're three confident 30-something women, and we were like, sometimes we look at these things and maybe don't feel confident, or we see things that people post and we're like, oh my God, that's not real.
Right.
So it sparked a lot of conversation and debate. So I'm super excited.
Yes. And Stephanie, you were the one who turned to Jen and were like, this needs to be an episode.
Steph is always good for the brainstorm of the episodes. So I think what we'll do is sort of a bunch of observations and kind of creating food for thought. And then, of course, because I get nerdy, I have some tools and some strategies for how to think about this stuff. Because, of course, after our conversation in December, I went to researching. So before we get too deep into it, let's tell our podcast members what they're getting this week. And if you're not a member, we'll tell you about the membership. So this week, I'm sending our members an article and a recipe. So the article is what I wrote called How to Stay Healthy While Staying Social. So maybe you participated in Dry January, or maybe in an effort to recommit to your health in January, you ended up like cooking at home more, and now you're ready to break free, right? What's that song? I want to break free. Anyway, okay, I can't sing. So this article is your cheat sheet for getting out, being social while maintaining your health. And then your recipe, I chose specifically because the Super Bowl is coming up. So this is a healthier take on a game day favorite. Are you ready? Stephanie, I'm coming to your house for the Super Bowl, so you might want to make these. Are you ready?
Or you might want to make these and bring them over to my house for the Super Bowl. Let's be clear. But yes,
totally. I'll do that too. It's for soy, garlic, ginger chicken wings.
Oh.
I know. Okay, so you bake them instead of frying them, and you don't bread them like a restaurant would, but the recipe is like sweet and savory and like kind of sticky. It's so good and like hits that spot when you want the chicken wing. And I don't know if you're like me and you're not one for like skin or bones, which makes chicken wings like a non-starter. You could totally just do the same sauce with like a chicken breast cut up into chunks. So if you want this article and or the recipe, or you're thinking that this could be the extra little bit of support to help keep your 2023 your healthiest year yet, here's what you do. You're going to go to glow.fm/salad with a side of fries. It's $10 a month. You get weekly recipes. At least monthly, I send you an article or tools, extra discounts you'll get from me, from our partners, and you'll get access to live Q&A sessions, which I typically do as a one-on-one. So it really is a total deal. Taking advantage of the full offerings, you save far more than that $10 cost. I say it every time. It is a no-brainer way to show yourself that your health is a priority. Plus, your membership really supports this podcast and this community so that we can continue to do this because we're about to pass 200,000 downloads. Later this year is going to be our 200th episode. All the things we want to keep going. Please help support us with the membership. So you go to glow.fm/salad with a side of fries, or just click the link in the show notes because that's easier than remembering a whole thing. Once you're there, you click support now, enter your email and payment method, click subscribe, and you're all set. You'll get this week's article, How to Stay Healthy While Staying Social, and the recipe for healthier soy garlic ginger chicken wings. All right, Beth, Steph, I'm sort of like, I don't know where to start, I guess. I guess like this whole thing started with like what we see on social media. And Stephanie, even the other night, you and I were talking about like the autotune, like the digital apps that can essentially change your face and your body. So I saw one recently where this woman was sort of calling out all of the stuff that people do to their videos online. So as she was talking, she was adjusting the video. So it was like, she was like, I can make my shoulders smaller. I can make my boobs bigger. I can make my waist smaller. I can make my hips bigger. It was like she played around with it standing there. And then she started walking around and it showed her sort of moving around, right? It looked very real. And then at the end of the, minute video, whatever it was, she put it back and like took all those things off. And it was like, she still looked amazing. But it just goes to show that like, we really have no clue what's real, even videos that we see online.
Oh, yeah. And I mean, I think, before social media and all the filters, we saw this with magazine journalism, right? Like there was a period in time in the early 2000s where you had publications like Vogue and, even some of the teen magazines being criticized for photoshopping pictures that were unrealistic. And, I play around sometimes with filters on Instagram. They're like, see what you would look like with lip filler, or see what your nose would look like. And then sometimes you're like, oh man, oh wow, okay.
I did like one that made me look like a Kardashian.
Exactly. So like people use these and you just see how easy it is. And then those are like the free ones, but the ones that you actually pay for, like Facetune, I mean, it really gives everybody like a glow up, but it's like your own sort of personal Photoshop to like erase any wrinkles and, any imperfections kind of fade. So yeah, it's scary that those things are out there and accessible for like everyone to use.
Well, and like, remember how groundbreaking it was when Dove did like the Real Women campaign and like real bodies. And it was like, they had people who were a size 8 or a size 10.
Yes.
And we're like, wow, like a size 10, that's plus size. We're like, no, that is like below the average size. But I also think like Stephanie's saying about like, the glow up factor. I was actually last night on Instagram and looking at somebody I know, and I was like, no judgment, but I was like, oh, she looks like a lot older in this picture than her other pictures. And I was like, oh, it's because she didn't filter this one. And,
oh my goodness.
And it wasn't not to like, I would never dig on her because, she looks great either way. But I was like, oh, she's just been over like brushing herself on other pictures, and it's somebody I haven't seen for a while because of COVID in person. And I'm like, so actually, this is probably the more true, real picture of her, which is beautiful and just who she is. But I think like our standards of beauty are shifting yet again, but also like, do we all want to look alike? Like, isn't that what makes beauty beauty? Like people being interesting and having different faces and us all not looking like robots. But, I will say the one thing I do like about those apps is not the face changes, but like you know, for work, I've had to do, you know, some social media stuff and whatnot. And I've used one app to solely like help the lighting and make it look like, you know, it's not the middle of the night when I got up the nerve, when I had the energy to do it, you know? So it's good for that kind of stuff. But yeah, I've also played around with it and made myself into like, you know, a Russian heiress, like made to order.
I mean, I've played with them. I've recorded random things with filters, but I have never posted anything with a filter.
Mm-hmm. No, and you don't, and that's why I love your videos. And I tell you all the time,
Thank you.
You know, you just keep it real. I mean, obviously you're beautiful and you look great.
Well, thank you.
That's on any of those videos, and have way more confidence than I could ever have to like do them. But I mean, I see this on dating apps all the time, where guys will post like, please be sure to look like your picture. And I've heard feedback from, you know, guy friends who are dating saying that the number one thing is like they feel like they get catfished because women post pictures that are overly filtered. And I think it's more women. I don't really see a lot of men using these apps and doing these. My other problem with men is they post pictures that were like taken 10, 20 years ago. So that's a different thing.
Okay, post so pictures of pictures.
Right. Oh my God. Okay, so dating apps are maybe a whole other conversation. But yes, like for somebody to show up and look like what you think they do. It's funny, actually, even in podcasting, like I've gotten on the phone with some of our members and they're like, you sound exactly the same. And it's like, well, yeah, it's just my voice. But it's a thing. Like, I think we've almost grown accustomed to like expecting something like the live and in person to be something totally different. But I think going back to what you guys were saying about like the filters and then what it makes us think about ourselves, it's like, is that what's expected? Is that what, you know, what's real these days? And then it's sort of also reminded me too of how like, you know, for the most part, I think people curate their social media. I feel like things end up in like one of two extremes. Either it's like highly curated and they're only showing you the best things, or people are like, I hate for this to come out the way it's going to come out, but I don't know how else to say it. They're like the oversharing and the like. There's one person where their videos on social media give me anxiety with the mess that is in their home. And I don't mean, I'm not judging it. I'm just looking at it and going like, my chest feels tight looking at this video, right? And so like, I feel like things are like in one extreme or the other. It's either like only the highlights or completely everything. And I feel like I remember when like Facebook first came out and people were like, oh, went to pee. And you're like, I don't care. Right? Like, is there a middle ground? Is that why we see these two extremes?
I mean, yes, I do think there's a middle ground. I think the middle ground is like, honestly, like for my business, I really need to be on social media, but we have a business account. So my personal account, I don't make that many posts. I think like I made 2 posts in 6 months or something, and I just use the stories. And so I'm like, that might be kind of a middle. But I think this extremism is like, I have fully watched people who like I knew like they were like in a very like unhealthy relationship with their spouse, but they were posting as if they were the most in love in the world. And I'm like, that is not real, you know? And then other people who use it like their video diary. And I'm like, you know, the privacy is a word that exists for a reason. You know, like I don't want to know about what you were doing at 9 a.m. and 10 a.m. Like maybe like J-Lo could get away with that. Like people are interested to know, but like, does anybody really care that you had trouble like painting your nails today? Like unless you're selling nail polish, I don't know. Like there's it's right. The overshare is, to me, I'm like, wow, go out and live your life. Like why are you so obsessively on social media?
It's interesting. The word that just came up in my head as you were saying that is like boundaries.
Yes, boundaries. Like I'm just gonna hide you or scroll past, but like also like, do you really want that much information about yourself out there? Like, do you want to be sharing like secrets and things online? I mean, like, I think that some people do it because they think they're going to all of a sudden become a social media star and get like one video to go viral, or like the curated people, like they're curating their content to hope that like this is the video I create that's going to become viral and become a sensation. Like that they're trying to get something to hit because everybody wants to like not have to work at life.
I will say 2 things. One, the videos that I think are terrible often end up blowing up. And the ones that like we sort of think might do well don't. And so like you can't plan it. I think, first of all, like when we were graduating from college, social media influencer wasn't a thing. I remember a few years ago, a friend of a friend's daughter was graduating and her dream job, like her hope was to graduate and be an influencer. And like, well, that's not really how it works, but okay. And it's just interesting. Like I do a lot of videos. I do a lot on social media, again, sort of like as brand building and, you know, building this podcast. But I will not do anything in my bedroom. Like that does not go in a video.
That's
my
fair.
living room, the kitchen. You know, I've even done the bathroom, right? Like using the bathroom mirror, my skincare, but like the bedroom is a no. I've told my social media team, like, no.
Yeah, that's like OnlyFans content. So different episode. But I think back to like the perception versus reality thing that you said in the beginning. Like, I think this whole conversation, like it was fresh off of Twitch's suicide.
Yes, you're right.
You know, what we were saying is, oh, we loved watching his videos and dancing with his wife and, you know, being on Ellen, and he always seems so positive. And that's the thing. It's like people show you what they want to show you. You know, very rarely are we like, I'm having a really horrible day, or like, I feel really anxious, or I feel really bad about myself. Let me go on social media and post. Like, rarely does that happen. It's like the highlights of the moment. So people are only seeing and they're like, oh, well, Stephanie must never be sad because she looks happy in every single picture she posts on social media because she's smiling in all of them, which is not the reality of like my life. These are just curated moments when I'm like, you know, having fun or on vacation or out with friends, and, you know, I'm not sharing the other side.
Yeah, I thank you for remembering that, because you're totally right. Like that was the conversation. And it's interesting too, because like we were saying, you never know. Like I always remember, like everybody's got shit, right? And you never know what's really going on. And so, you know, I mean, for us to know what's happening for Twitch, right? Like he's not a friend. He's not somebody that we really know, right? So it makes sense that we wouldn't necessarily know that about him.
Yeah.
But I do think there's something too of like, even what we were saying about boundaries, like it's sort of a weird spot to say, hey, I want you to have boundaries. I don't want to see your whatever. But then for us also to say, you know, should we be showing both sides of this? Or is it just to remind ourselves that what we're seeing is this curated, the happy moments, because somebody probably or maybe doesn't want to share the not so happy moments.
Yeah, and I think in the case of Twitch, and yes, Steph, thanks for remembering that, because now I brought back to the whole conversation. But no, I think we have to remember too, like the difference between like a friend posting on social media and a social media influencer, for lack of a better word. Like that was actually his job. Like if you think of like a CEO showing up to their company, are they showing up in tears and depressed? Like they have to have game face on. So like for him, part of his livelihood actually depended on generating good content and posts that his audience, who expects him to be up and light and positive, to respond to and to not shift, because your personality becomes like a cartoon character. Like there's not much variation. Like people have an expectation of what they want to see from certain people, you know, and it's like Celeste Barber, right, who is known for like making fun of like high fashion models and stuff online. Like if all of a sudden she started to do something like serious and was like, I'm not making a joke, people would be like, huh? So I think that's like another element. But then like everyday people have taken this on for themselves to try to become like their own Twitch. And I'm like, you're just like a 5th grade teacher. Just be yourself. Like,
right.
You know? And like, what's the ramifications of it? Because the dopamine hit that people are getting from getting likes and comments and validation and all that. And it's like, people are just, they're posting stuff to get validated. They're like, people have a shit day and they're, excuse my French, but they post because they're like, oh, let me post a sexy pic of myself. So like people will tell me that I'm pretty or great or whatever. It might not even be that conscious. It might be subconscious at this point.
Yeah, but I think actually what happens more is that somebody's maybe having a, you know, no good, very bad day and goes on social media and sees that everybody else isn't showing their no good, very bad day, and then feels worse about their own day.
Yes, I agree. It's dangerous, actually. It's very dangerous. We didn't have this much insight into people, you know,
right,
growing up. Like I just posted something about Generation X, which I am in. And it's like, we grew up in a generation where it was like analog then digital. Like we have had a lot of different things change. And it's like, younger people today who grew up knowing cell phones, the internet, influencers, like you said, aspire to want to be an influencer or whatnot. So I'm like, how is this really affecting our society? And now that we've all been inside more for COVID, like the things going around about like you intended to watch a half-hour TV show, but then spent 4 hours on TikTok. I'm like, this can't be good. Right. Our brain. This like can't be good.
Right.
Well, you guys said like we think we know these people, right? Like we don't know these people, but because we watch their stories because they post every day, we're like, oh, I know this person, when in fact I've never met them and I only know this persona that they're putting out there. And then they feel like they have to uphold the image. So I'll go old school for you guys. One of my favorite movies, Legally Blonde. If you guys remember, in the end with the trial, how Elle Woods gets Brooke off the hook for murder.
Yeah. Happy people don't kill people.
Yes. Not even that, but she said, because endorphins make you happy. And she believed her. But Brooke said, the reason why I couldn't give my alibi is it would ruin me. And they're like, why? And she whispers. And then she said she had liposuction. Now here's this fitness influencer who, again, back to social media, has to look perfect. And everybody thinks, oh, wow, I take your class. I do the squats. I get the glutes. Not the case. So she would rather go to prison than give her alibi to say she had liposuction because it would ruin that image that everyone in the outside world had of her.
Totally. That's such a good memory. I love that reference. And by the way, that actually brings up what you and I were talking about the other day as far as like the celebrities who deny the plastic surgery versus the ones who sort of just own it, right? Or like, wasn't it Kylie Jenner who kept saying she didn't get fillers? It was all her lip stuff, and then sold $1 bajillion of lip stuff and then was like, so I do get fillers. What do you mean?
Right. And then other celebrities, though, I give Chrissy Teigen credit, whether you love her or hate her, she does own up to the fact that she's had stuff done. People are like, wow, you look different recently. And she goes, oh, I got the buccal fat removal in my cheeks. And you're like, oh, okay, that makes sense. Like, but then other ones, you're right. It takes them, they either never admit that they get anything but a little light Botox. Okay. Or, they just work out really hard and they put in the effort. And let me tell you, as somebody that works out 6 days a week, tries to eat decently clean, like, I'm sorry, I don't like that.
Right.
Well, and also I think it's like, we look at the celebrities, but then it's often like, what's behind the celebrities making them make those choices? Because, I work in an industry where people like to blame people in my position for things. And I was like, no, wait, it was like 6 people behind me where things started to shift and change this marketplace and da-da-da-da-da. And I'm like, I can remember, like a fun fact, I had like an agent when I was 3 and they'd call us up for commercials and they'd be like, what kind of toothpaste does your kid use? And like, you had to give the right answer because if Colgate was going to have you for a commercial or Crest or whatever toothpaste company, I'm not saying anybody specifically, but if a company was going to have you, they wanted you using their product. So it's like, did a Kardashian like have to like essentially lie or whatever for the company that she was going to be their main advertising person, so like, where does this start and all end? Because these celebrities are like, well, yeah, I want that $10 million contract or whatever. But in order to do it, you have to be able to say with confidence that like this product is working and it wasn't anything else. So like, it's unfortunate, but people do lie. But I think we can kind of spot the difference, there's only so many superhumans that are born perfect.
But they also lie about products. Like, do you guys remember a few years ago, it was like Sugar Bear hair gummies, like all these celebrities and reality stars were eating these Sugar Bear hair gummies, like, oh, you're going to make your hair grow full and luscious. Meanwhile, they're there with extensions on. Same with the detox tea or whatever it was. I think, that was a big thing too. And it did nothing but like give you tummy trouble. So to your point of people paying them, like, yeah, if you get $3 million to post that and saying, eat these gummy bears and your hair is going to grow long. I mean,
I kind of think people will do anything for money or beauty. And it's unfortunate, which is why I look at things and it's hard. I was telling Jen I was going to screenshot all the diet ads I got in like January for things, because there's like random shit. One was like the ice diet. I was like, all this time, it was just ice. All I had to do was chew on ice once a day and I'd be my perfect weight. and like all these things, but there's enough of it popping in. And I was talking to someone who does hypnosis, and they're like, we're hypnotized all the time, like on a daily basis.
Yes.
We don't realize it. And so I'm like, yes, you start to see enough of those ads, then you start to be like, wait, maybe this one is one that works. Like, and then you get on it. And I noticed that now they have the opportunity to disable comments, right, on a post. So where people used to be like, what is this video about? Like, what is it? And somebody would be like, oh, they just want you to like buy this calcium pill or whatever. Like now they can't say it. So you either have to watch it or not watch it. And you get lured in after a while. And I will admit that I got lured in by one thing recently. And I was like, oh, this kind of makes sense. I mean, it was like a supplement thing, and I got it. And, it's like a moment of weakness where I thought maybe there is a magic pill, even though I knew better. And I got it, and I like took it for like 3 days, and I was like, this is for the birds. And I sent it back and got a refund. And I was like, Beth, what were you thinking? But I think like it's enough. I was hypnotized by the gram.
But I think it's the FOMO. It's the like, if this is on Instagram and everybody is seeing it, and I'm the only one who doesn't buy the thing or do the thing or get the thing, you know what I mean? I feel like there's also the FOMO piece of like, I mean, I know I'm on a soapbox about Ozempic. Go back and listen to our nutrition nugget on Ozempic, but like what we're seeing on social media about all of the stuff. I mean, there are certainly people who still don't even know what I'm talking about, but it's like, wait, rail thin is the look again. And I'm, it's that I'm missing the boat. I'm doing the wrong thing. And it's fostering this, it's also part of why I hate before and after photos on social media. You'll notice I never post a before and after photo of anyone, not my clients or me, because to me, the real transformation you can't see in a picture. But yet, it sells a lot.
Oh, yeah. People Magazine has an annual before and after issue. They've always had that, It's like people half their size.
Oh, and we're going to see a lot on our phone tomorrow just from this conversation.
Exactly. Is your phone nearby? Because it's listening.
And some of it is just laughable because I'm like nobody believes this is the same person, right? Like because they just like put a head on a different body. But also like the whole Ozempic thing to me is like, it's bringing me back to what, like 1991, 1992, and like what fen-phen and what was the other, hydroxycut and like something else where I'm like, for generations, we've been trying to find like the cure for weight or whatever. And I'm like, there isn't enough time to tell like the long-term effects of something like this. And like in the short term, everything's great. But as someone who has yo-yoed in her life and whatnot, I know for sure that I'm the one who has to make the change. That like, if there was a miracle, like somebody would be so loaded right now if there actually was something that worked.
Well, the thing that works is the thing that doesn't make any money.
That's right. Exactly. Well said.
We're not making pharmaceuticals money. We're not making, our doctors money. We're not making insurance companies money. We're not making the food companies money, right? So, womp.
I know. They're like, really, it's just basics. Just like, eat smart and move your body. Like that doesn't make any money because people could do that for the normal cost.
So 2 other things on the ad front. Steph, you want to mention the ad that you sent me the other day? The butt thing.
Oh my gosh, yes. So again, scrolling through Instagram and I see this little device on a woman's perfect cellulite-free gluteal. And it looked like a mini M-Sculpt, like a personalized M-Sculpt. And they're like, who needs squats? Just stick this on your ass. And literally it like pulls and I'm just like, it looks like a Band-Aid. And I'm like, oh, okay. So I do this and it looks like that. Yeah.
I mean, it reminded me of the old ab belt that like electrocuted your abs. You know what I'm talking about from the 90s?
Yes.
Maybe that was early 2000s. But I mean, again, like to your point, Steph, of what you were saying when you sent me that, it's sort of like her body was probably using the app to make it totally perfect, in the ad to begin with. Right. And then we see it and think that that's how the buttock looked the way it did.
Well, right. And a lot of these things too, it's like they use the app to say, you use this under eye cream, look at this before and after. And they just sweep off the wrinkles, like. Right.
All right. I'm going to share something personal here.
We're here for you.
Listen, I'm 45 years old. I don't have a wrinkle on my face. And all my friends are like, you look so young. And I will make a joke and say like, well, fat, it's nature's filler. However, I have good genetics. Both my grandmothers died in their 90s without a wrinkle on their face. And I will tell you, I have zero skin regimen. I use whatever cheap soap on my face from, I don't know, Trader Joe's. I've never moisturized. I've never done the 3-step thing. I've never done anything that is supposed to like help you anti-age. Maybe I would look 12 if I did. I don't know. But I've not done any of that stuff. And neither did my mother or my grandmother. And I'm like, in terms of genes, there's a lot of other genes that I have that work so great. This is a great gene that I got that like, for some reason on both sides of my family, everybody stays looking young. And so genetics are at play, I think. And, you know, I didn't get the genetics for, you know, to stay the same size my whole life. So there's different genetics we win and others we don't win.
One day we'll have the epigenetics conversation and do the DNA test. And that's a whole other conversation. But you're right. Like there are certain things where, you know, some people have, you know, I hate even calling it an advantage, right? But some people have, you know, things in their favor in one category versus another and whatever. But I think what ends up happening inevitably, and I'm going to come back to this in a second, is that what we see, we assume is somebody's all the time, right? Like what we see somebody eat, we assume it's what they eat all the time. What somebody wears, what somebody is doing, right? Any activity, like when people post the video of themselves on a boat, we assume that they're on a boat every day, right? Like there's something about those assumptions and like filling in the blanks and connecting those dots that's part of this challenge, you know?
Oh, yeah. Like we think everybody, it's like all their lifestyles are great and grand and we're never sad. And just like you said with the couples, like I know that too, where people put pictures and then you know, hear behind closed doors, you're like, they don't even like each other. Like they don't even hang out or whatever.
But also I think it's like, you know, this is not my all the time. I don't know if you've experienced this personally or have a friend or said it yourself. No offense meant by it. But like, you know, I've had girlfriends who are like, and he says that I'm the most beautiful without my makeup. He loves me without my makeup on. And I'm like, when did we get to the place where like, and then they'd be like, and that's how I know he truly loved me. And I'm like, oh, because he can handle being around you without your makeup on, like, because he thinks you're still beautiful without your makeup on. And I'm like, what kind of twisted whatever? We're like, put the toilet seat down with these guys. Like, you know, wash your face every now and then. But like, how did we get to this place where it's a measure of love?
That's
if
the
somebody
standard.
can love you without your makeup on, they must really love you then, you know?
Okay, wait, I'm going to say something that this isn't meant for like whatever. It's just, this is like me being real. I'm like, I don't always love me without my makeup on. Like I have a hard time. Like I don't like to leave my house and go somewhere other than working out without makeup on. And
me too.
I would go maybe with like bare face with like mascara and my eyebrows, but like I don't love myself without my makeup. I'll be honest.
Yeah.
I think
me too,
all
but I feel like
that.
that's yeah, first of all, thank you for saying that because 100,000 million% relatable. You know, like I remember my friend's mom growing up didn't go anywhere without lipstick. Like that was her one thing. I feel like I don't like to go anywhere without makeup, but at the very least mascara.
Yeah.
Yes.
My mom was that
Yeah.
way. She never left the house without her makeup on and her nails done. But I think the point about that is that as women, I think we should do whatever we want that makes us feel good about ourselves, but another person shouldn't dictate that we're acceptable to them in a certain way, you know? So I'm like, I have no problem if somebody gets filler, if they get plastic surgery, whatever. Like, that's part of the freedom we have as women now. Like, you do you, boost your confidence, do whatever makes you feel great. But I don't want anybody else to tell me how I should be to be acceptable, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, I hear you.
Except for all those people on social media.
Right. Well, so I was going to say, I think we did a thing here, right? Did we get it out? Like what we're seeing, what it makes us think and feel? Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So let's shift into the geeky part.
Yes, geeky.
So it's really what we want to know from the research and then what we can possibly do given all of these things. So we'll do that after a quick message from our partner for this episode. Big thank you to Snap Cleaning Products for supporting Salad with a Side of Fries. Make household and industrial cleaning a snap with their eco-friendly, economical, multi-purpose Snap products. Snap's concentrated, multi-purpose formulas perform light to industrial strength jobs all in one bottle. Snap products give you the cleaning power of a variety of cleaners, saving you time, money, and valuable storage space. And Snap products were developed with the environment in mind, using plant-based ingredients that are biodegradable, phosphate-free, non-toxic, and bottle and recyclable containers. So maybe one of the things you're looking to do this year is take steps in the direction of a cleaner home, and not just clean as in tidy, right? Or not dusty, but clean as in free of toxins. And an easy place to do this is with non-toxic cleaners. Now, I do have to say this is actually another like perception versus reality thing, because there's a lot of brands out there that tout to be non-toxic or free and clear that actually aren't. So that's why I use Snap. Snap makes it super easy to upgrade all of your household cleaning products in one fell swoop with the Snap Pack. So in the Snap Pack, it's PAK, by the way, if you go searching for it on the website. You get the triple enzyme laundry detergent, dishwashing liquid, fabric softener, heavy-duty concentrate, all-purpose natural concentrate, scouring deep cleanser, disinfectant cleanser, and the accessory pack, which gives you flip tops and spray bottles and a home and shop cloth. So all of this, by the way, for just $78.50. And that is actually less because you get 10% off and free shipping for being a Salad with a Side of Fries listener. So text the word CLEAN, CLEAN, to 844-947-4846. You'll receive the link and coupon code right to your phone. Again, simply text the word CLEAN, CLEAN, to 844-947-4846 to try Snap. In particular, the Snap Pack at 10% off plus free shipping. This is a toll-free number. Standard text and data rates may apply. Okay, so this is where I put my like coach hat on, and I went researching why we have these reactions and what we can do about it. So I think maybe we'll start with the bottom line and then like backtrack a little. So bottom line is we have to recognize it's happening, identify the emotion, like name it, and then decide what we're going to do about it. And what's really interesting about it is that naming the emotion, naming the feeling is important for two reasons. One is because naming it helps us process it, but two, the name we give it impacts how we experience it. So I might have butterflies in my stomach and say I'm nervous, or I might have butterflies in my stomach and say I'm excited, right? And so what we call the feeling actually changes and morphs and shifts what we experience. So then it gets really messed up because we don't have the proper lexicon for expressing all the emotions that a human is capable of experiencing. So there's a book by Dr. Mark Brackett called Permission to Feel, and he talks a lot about this, and he has like a whole curriculum for schools, but it's essentially teaching us a vocabulary for a whole variety of words so that we have more than just mad, sad, glad, angry, excited, frustrated, tired. You know, like I made those up, but those feel like the big ones. So, you know, I think even as really, bright people, there's something missing in terms of the vocabulary of emotions. Does that make sense to you guys? Do you?
Like vocabulary, when you say that, it means like when we see these ads or these pictures, then, how it makes us feel about ourselves.
Yeah, the vocabulary to accurately name what we're experiencing when we see those things.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I liked tired. It doesn't usually make me tired, but I was like, ooh,
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's so interesting. I think like even sometimes coming up with like the basic emotions is hard. Like you're like, I don't actually know what I'm feeling right now. Like what emotion is this? Because I think everything starts to kind of merge into one larger kind of feeling. It's hard to like pull it out and dissect it. At least I've noticed I feel like at this age I should be able to dissect it. But sometimes I'm like, what am I really feeling right now? And then what does that mean?
Yeah. Yeah. So we're going to come back to that in a second, sort of, taking a step back, because that was sort of like the end, right? Like, Steph, you were talking about, magazines before. I remember in college in a communications course having to write a paper about violence in music. And like, there was a whole thing about like violence in video games. And does that make people more violent? And like, full disclosure, the jury's still out on whether or not that does contribute to violent behavior. But it got me thinking, right? Like, I was thinking about that and the Ozempic thing and the definition of beauty, like we were talking about before. And it also made me think about like how much time we spent looking at magazines and how much time is spent on social media. So I heard recently that kids spend about 90 minutes a day on TikTok. And I will tell you, it's not just kids or young people, right? I've also heard that people spend about 90 minutes a day on Bumble, a dating app, right? You add those together, right? And it's like, oh my God, And I mean, we can use TikTok as, sort of the poster of all social media, right? And I just think there's no way to ignore that impact of that much time with those things compared to like thinking about what we thought the impact was of magazines and models 20, 30 years ago.
Well, and magazines and models left your hands and they stayed in one place when you left them. When you talk about, there is no way to ignore the impact because it's so funny. I was thinking the other day, because I knew we were going to have this, about different things. And like, I remember when the Victoria's Secrets catalog would come out every month, I'd go in there and I would circle everything I wanted, because I was like a teenager and hormones were raging. And I was like, ooh, I'm going to have a boyfriend that I want to wear this lingerie for. Like, you're like in a 15-year-old head space. And so I'd circle all the things I wanted, then all the clothes where they didn't have like a real clothing store. You could only order it in the catalog. And that was like, 10 minutes or 15 minutes I'd spend. And then I would just put it down. And I don't know if I'd ever look at it again. But now it's 24/7. So that how many years do you think we need before we can really understand the impact is the question.
The impact, I don't know. And I think it's so hard to trace it back to this. So what that leaves us with is like, what do we do now, right? Like, how do we process this? So the first piece is to recognize that our brains are wired to connect dots. Our brains don't like open ends, right? It's why we make up stories. We complete stories about things in our heads. Like, our brain assumes a lot. In particular, like we were just talking about with the people on the boat or whatever, our brain assumes that what we see is what is always happening. So it was funny, even over Thanksgiving, I was home in Michigan and I was eating half a bagel and my dad looked at me and he goes, "So bagels are okay?" And it's like, Dad, I love you, right? Like, it was just funny, to think about like, wait a minute. First of all, right? Like, we assume that like, whatever somebody's doing is what they do all the time and all the time, no matter what. It also reminded me, even not on social media, but in day-to-day life, walking down the street, I was in the beginning of my health coaching practice and I left the office in the middle of the day. Like, I think I was going to get food or something. And I saw this woman who was, I can safely say she was morbidly obese. And she was eating an ice cream. And I remember thinking, what if this is the one time she's eating ice cream in like 5 years? But I can imagine, and at other times in my life, probably looking at this person and assuming that that's what they eat all the time and going, well, just don't eat the ice cream all the time. But like, we don't know. Our brain connects those dots. Our brain makes those assumptions.
Yes. Oh my gosh. We were talking about this at that dinner too. Remember about how people make comments and, I've gotten this comment before where it's like, I'll order something or I'll be out by myself and I'm like, look, I'm on vacation. I'm sitting at a bar. I'm going to this place because they're famous for their burgers. I want a burger and fries and a glass of champagne. And so I order it and like
Sounds
the man
great.
or whoever next to me feels the need to make a comment of like, wow, where are you going to put that? Or like, wow, I didn't think you'd eat a burger. And I'm just kind of like, I laugh it off. But then it makes me feel self-conscious of like, well, shit, should I just got the salad? Like, what I probably 90% of the time would have ordered. But like today I'm having the burger, but now I kind of feel bad about it because this guy had to make this comment that now ruined my dinner. So yeah.
Oh, yeah. This is such a thing. Like, I want to say to all the listeners out there, just like, when you have the urge to say something, don't. Like, it's like never ask a woman if she's pregnant unless she's like, I think my water just broke and she needs help. Like, it is one of those things that, like, I have dealt with different weights my whole life. And there have been points in time where I literally, like this example, Jen, I have gone to the ice cream store and it was literally the one time in like 6 months I was going to have ice cream. It was like spring. I was excited. I wanted my like chocolate ice cream with sprinkles, like my special birthday thing or whatever. And I was like, oh, people are going to look at me eating this and think that's why she's fat. And so I've eaten things in private just because I don't want people to see me eating it and then assume that like it's kind of like it's my failure or like this is the reason why, you know, and it's a very real thing. And similarly, strangers who come up to you and judge you. I was in Paris, the same thing happened, Stephanie, and I was like eating a bakery treat in Paris. I was like 20 and I was super thin at that point in my life. And this guy walked up to me and he was like, if you eat like that, you're going to be fat. And I was like, who are you? Yeah, and I'm just trying to, I'm in Paris on vacation. I want a dessert. My God.
The nerve of people. I don't think I'd ever feel like I would go up to anybody, especially a stranger, and comment on like what they're eating.
Yeah. So honestly, that's like a whole other conversation. I think for our conversation today, it's about saying when we notice our brains doing that with other people and we can get carried away ourselves, right? When we notice that happening, we create new neural pathways, right? That's the old pathway. So we say, cancel. Everybody's got shit, right? Remind ourselves that what we see sometimes is likely not what we see all the time because it wouldn't be that way for me. I don't know why I think it is for them, right? And onward. And it's hard, but I think, you know, now this sounds stupid and cliche, but like it starts with us, right? Like if we just take care of ourselves and ignore the other people, and by the way, their comments have everything to do with them and nothing to do with you.
100%. And I hope everybody goes out and does the Jen in their brain is like, cancel. Right. I'm going to use that now.
You have to say it twice. Cancel. Okay. So then the other thing is I often say compare and despair, right? So I started digging into comparison and competition and like, because that's almost what I feel like is actually happening when we see these things on social media. Okay. So social psychologists believe that comparing ourselves to other, is 100% not a choice, that we are hardwired to compare and we will always do it. All that we can do is be aware of it and choose how we're going to let it affect us. But the comparison part is not a choice. So I used a lot of Brené Brown's work in some of this, right? So she defines comparison as the crush of conformity from one side and competition from the other. It's trying to simultaneously fit in and stand out. And I was like, yes, mic drop, hands down.
Yeah. Well, they say comparison is the thief of joy.
Yes.
And I can see that. Like I've gotten older and wiser and over the years, and I used to be like super competitive or be like, oh, this person got promoted. Well, I should get promoted. Like I'm better than her. Or like this person has that and like I can do this better. And I don't know, maybe like a few years ago, I really started to shift my mindset. And I was like, good for that person. What did they do that I can like learn from versus like beating myself up? So you just kind of realize like, just because they have that does not mean that there's anything wrong with me, you know, and it's a hard thing to get to though. I see, you know, it's hard.
So what you did is you shifted comparison to admiration. Admiration is that other word. So with admiration, hold on, I'm going in my notes to get the proper definition for admiration before I mess it up. Okay, admiration is when someone's abilities, accomplishments, or character inspires us, or when we see something that inspires us, like art or nature. And what's really interesting is that admiration doesn't make us want to be like them. It makes us want to be better at whatever we do.
Yes.
I'm that.
Like, Yes.
Can we put that on a
Right.
t-shirt?
Yes. So here's what else is really interesting and can maybe help with that shift. So Scott Sonnenschein is another researcher. So he actually, you know how they say, right, grass is always greener? So he goes, grass is always greener because it is always greener. He said, actually, the physics of how a blade of grass grows, it always looks greener from the other side of the fence. It's literally the shape of the blade of grass. It's physics. So when we have that moment, right, where we're like, oh, grass is greener, we could say to ourselves, right, oh, it's greener because it is greener. And from their side of the fence, my grass looks greener. Now what do I want to do?
This is really deep, Jen. This is good. No, this is good.
Yeah, I mean, pictures of perfect gluteals on Instagram will inspire me to do more squats. Yes.
Because you admire her gluteals.
Yes. Yes. And I'm like, oh, wow, I too, like the Kardashians, it's like, wow, I too can age in reverse. I aspire to age in reverse.
But like that gluteal girl might be like looking at the picture of herself being like, God, I wish I had that butt. Because
probably.
Like,
right. So another place where I see comparison show up a lot is when I'm coaching couples, right? And their progress, their paths look very different. Men tend to lose more up front and taper off. Women tend to go slower up front and sort of gain momentum, right? But we then go into the like, well, why am I doing this? You know, and we start to compare those results. So it's the same kind of thing of cancel, right? Go, like you said, Steph, comparison is the thief of joy. This is about the process, right? Or whatever it is, and kind of letting their results be the admiration to help us do what we're doing better, potentially. And then the other thing with comparison that's sort of interesting is that there's upward and downward social comparison. So we can compare ourselves to someone we think is better than us or performing better than us, or we compare ourselves to someone we think is worse than us or performing worse than us. And what's interesting is like, and we have this idea, I think sometimes people go on social media looking for one or the other. And the truth is they both have negative and positive impacts on us. That neither one is better or worse, and neither one is neutral. Right? It's both comparison. It's both these things. And so, you know, it's like they're almost two sides of a coin or like one step apart rather than these massive opposites.
Well, I love what you're saying about admiration and all of that, because I think too often with comparison, it will kick in an unhealthy competition feeling within you that doesn't help you. And it can actually hurt a relationship, especially if it's like, you know, you're higher up or somebody that like you're striving to get to that position or whatever. And like, instead of admiring them and letting that kind of inward self stuff help you grow, you become competitive in your head. And then that relationship actually starts to suffer because you can't stop comparing and competing. And, you know, that person is probably like, if they got a little gratitude for the work they did, like might help everybody.
Yeah, and same for ourselves.
Yeah, 100%.
You know, right? So it reminds me too, there's a book called The Four Agreements. And one of the things is take nothing personally, whether it's admiration or judgment, right? Either way, affection or judgment, right? It's take nothing personally. It's the same thing about like what the people said about your burger stuff has everything to do with them and nothing to do with you. So even reminding ourselves, whether it's, you know, somebody's comment on something on social media or the things we're seeing about them and making it mean something for us, like we made that mean something. So we can make it unmean something.
Thanks for reminding me about the Four Agreements, because I audio read it last year again, and I'm like, I need to like read just these principles every morning, because there's so many things on the social media and otherwise that are trying to get you to like talk back all that good wisdom in your own head.
Yeah. Okay, two other words that came up a lot in thinking about social media things: envy and jealousy. So by the way, what we always think of as jealousy is actually envy. So envy is typically two people when one lacks something enjoyed by another. Jealousy typically involves three people and occurs when somebody fears losing someone to another person. It's like losing someone's attention. So, right, like it could even be friends. It doesn't have to be romantic, right? Like I feel like that made me think of like a love triangle, but also could be friends. Like, you know, when you introduce a friend to somebody else and then they start to talk and you're like, wait, what happened to me? Right? That's actually jealousy. Most of what we see when we see somebody's like beach pictures on Instagram is envy. So again, it sort of goes back to what we were saying before, like developing this lexicon, having the words to actually describe what it is that we're feeling. Steph, I feel like you're going to say something.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think, you know, for a long time for me, you know, it would be when all of my friends were coupling up and then getting engaged and then getting married. And, you know, I guess it was envy now that you're saying it. But for me, it was, and I guess part of it was jealousy too, right? Because the relationship with your friend ultimately changes, you know, now that they're married or they found someone, you know, they're not that single girl that wants to go out and, you know, hang out all the time. So that was hard for me. And I went through that a few years ago. Now, again, and I think this just comes with like doing the work and kind of recognizing like just because they have something doesn't mean like, look, this is waiting for you. You can have this. And also what you said earlier, Beth, is like, okay, but like, does that mean like that's one piece of their life and maybe you don't have it in their life, but like, they may look at you and say, wow, she can just go buy whatever she wants, or she can go on a vacation and, you know, go do this. Whereas like now I have a family. So like, I can't maybe do that. So I think it's trying to look at both sides and saying, but like, let's try to balance it out. So I have to like consciously make myself do that, but it works.
100%. And similar to you, Steph, like I, over the years, have evolved into having the conversation with myself of like, wait, I could do that too. I would just have to make different choices. And I don't want to make those choices to do that thing. So that like, so cool. Here's where I'm at. And I come back to like being okay with what I'm doing. Right. It's not that I can't do that.
I've had the same exact experience as you, Jen. And I think it's, for me, I feel like some of it has just come from like aging and just spending more time experiencing things. But like what I would feel in my 20s and similar to you, Stephanie, like, I would feel the like, when a lot of my friends were in their 20s and they were like climbing corporate ladders, I was in a different career place. And I'm like, oh, they get to take vacations. They get to do all this. And yeah, I guess envy would be the word. But now I feel like I'm mostly competing with myself against like my own mind. And also like literally being like, well, Beth, you can have that. If you decide you want it, then you have to do X, Y, Z. And then I'm like, I don't know if I want to.
Right. Okay. So what we're talking about, right, is shifting more into that admiration, letting those things inspire what we want to do for ourselves. All right. I want to give you another word that I loved learning. So we've heard of Schadenfreude, right? Where we take pleasure in like somebody else's suffering, right? Look, we've all been there. Smile, laugh. We're all human. We've all done it. Okay. We can thank The Simpsons for bringing that back into like, you know, our vocabulary. Okay. But here's the new word, Freudenfreude, which is taking joy in someone else's joy.
Oh.
This one, I've chosen as I'm saying this. This is where I want us all to be. Like, choose this, right? I think I sent this to both of you and a whole bunch of women. There was like a meme on Instagram that I sent around that said, women need other women in their lives who think they are a big deal. No competition, no backhanded comments, no jealousy, no hate. Just, I love you, I support you, and there's no one on earth like you. Like that kind of energy.
I love that.
Freudenfreude.
How do you say it again? Freudenfreude?
Yeah.
Okay.
Say it 10 times.
Freudenfreude. Don't make me say it 10 times. So interesting. So Abby Wambach, you know, the soccer player, she talks about this thing called point and run. So when she scores, the first thing she does is point to the coach, the person who made the assist, anybody else who contributed to the goal. When anybody else scores, she runs to them. So it's the point and run, right? And in my group coaching, right, we talk about this in a group setting. It's like, how can we celebrate everybody's successes, you know, do the Freudenfreude thing and let it, you know, inspire us for what we can do for ourselves, you know? Two of my business mentors always used to say, you must succeed so others can realize their dreams. Because if it's possible for you, it means it's possible for them.
I love that. Like I'm all about the pay it forward. You know, like I had a friend tell me, Steph, you're not a gatekeeper. And I'm like, no, I'm not. Like when somebody says, I love your outfit, I say, yeah, it's Rent the Runway. and they're like, oh, I've always wanted to try it. I was like, give me your number. I'll give you a discount code. You get 2 months for $40. Like, if they're like, oh, I like this, what lip gloss are you wearing? Like, I share, like, I don't, because to me, I'm just like, oh, if it helps somebody else, like, great. I'm happy to share the wealth. Like, I'm definitely not a gatekeeper with any of that.
There is more than enough to go around for everybody and then some. Yeah.
Yeah. And I was talking to somebody recently, and we're talking about like love, and like love comes into our self-love, loving our friends, relationships. And they're like, there's not a limit on it. So like when you get into like that jealousy sphere of like you introduce a friend to whatever, or another friend, and now they're hanging out or whatever. It's like there's no cap on that. But we think we put an imaginary cap there. And so the same thing for success. But I think, Jen, you need to re-listen to this episode and write down, there's so many one-liners in here that you gave that are kind of amazing. I kind of want like a one sheet of all your one-liners.
All right, we'll do it. We're coming out with merch this year too, guys. So if you want these on merch, let me know. And yeah, I mean, it's all of these things, like reminding ourselves too of even how we would be in a situation. Like, I wouldn't think less of this friend, even though I was having conversations with the person they introduced me to. So like, I don't know why I think you know what I mean? Like we sort of create these ideas that like if we turned it around, wouldn't be there,
That's so 100% true.
Yeah.
And it's like, if we just took that 1 second to just flip the script a little bit, we'd be like, oh, okay. But like everything is not a threat.
Right. And I think also that goes back to fear, like as we talk about emotions that group together and whatever, like resentment actually goes to envy, not to anger, whatever. There's like a whole spider web of these words that I ended up in. One that I do want to touch on before we go, and that is self-righteousness. And this comes up a lot in our wellness because I think a lot of times people can put themselves sometimes on a pedestal with their progress. Or, we expect from somebody else what we would do for ourselves. And so self-righteousness, by the way, is the conviction that one's beliefs and behaviors are the most correct. So, we can look at what somebody's doing and say, how might that actually be serving them? It might not serve me, but I'm not living their life and they're not living my life, right? So I just want everybody to think about and remember, especially when it comes to wellness stuff, and especially as we make progress and we progress through this year even, I always remind myself that like everybody is simply just doing the best they can in any given moment with the tools and knowledge and information and resources that they have at the time. And I experience this a lot. Like I think people think I'm the food police or that I'm watching what they're doing or, judging it. And I'm really not. I am like hyper aware of this. Brene Brown says this is a flag that our self-concept is in trouble, that we think, we're like fighting for our self-worth and have that like self-righteousness. And the goal instead is what she calls grounded confidence. I feel like I said a lot.
No, I love that. And I love Brene.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think, like you said, the food police, and I've eaten with you several times and not once did I think like we eat basically the same thing. So
I know we do.
You're judging what I'm eating, it's, yeah.
But I think this whole self-righteous thing, it really makes me think of judgment and like, where does judgment increase? And I think, and we all know people that have higher levels of judgment than others. But
it goes back to the downward social comparison.
Exactly.
Yes.
So I think
we've come full circle.
We've come completely full circle, but it's helpful to, to hear it, because I think oftentimes, especially when there's discord in a relationship or a relationship is changing, or whether it's with ourselves or somebody else, it's kind of like, well, that's not how I would do it, or that's how I've never done it like that before. Like whatever it is, and it's so judgy and then can get preachy. And it's not actually keen into like what is actually happening is the best that person could do at that moment, or the best you could have done at that moment.
Yes.
Exactly 100%. What you just said. I feel like I just repeated what you said, but
but it helps.
Yeah.
It helps. Yeah. All right. So summing it up, what do we have to do, right? We're scrolling social media. What do we have to do? Be aware that we've gone into whatever mind space. Name it. What is this? Is this comparison? Is this envy? Is this, right? What is it? Name it. And then choose what we want to do with it. The grass is greener because the grass is actually greener. And what? right? We make those choices. If you want to learn more or dig into Mark Brackett's book, Permission to Feel, The Four Agreements, Brene Brown's Atlas of the Heart, there's a whole bunch of other researchers that I looked at stuff. There's also a podcast called Offline from Crooked Media where they look at the impact of all of our time online. They interview really interesting people. So that was where I learned about sort of the Bumble thing, because that's from a new podcast that's coming out about how much time we spend on dating apps and like what happens when you turn your romantic life over to companies. Really interesting. But anyway, and thank you, by the way, to the two of you for being here, for participating and being so vulnerable and sharing in this conversation. So I adore and appreciate you guys.
Oh, thanks for having us.
And I admire you both.
Well, thank you. I hope that you'll like my Instagram post that I'm going to do later. No, I'm just kidding. Validate me and keep me going. But I think one thing, Jen, and I know we're like running up on time, but I just want to address it. Like, it's all great to aspire to reach for the next best feeling, right? And going from that, envy to admiration. But like, I think sometimes people just get so far stuck that like, I've heard a lot now, people are doing dry January. What's starting to become a thing is like social media detoxes where they're like, I'm deleting Instagram, for a week. I'm not going to look at it. I'm deleting it for a month. And, I actually want to try this because I will say I'm addicted. And when I have like 5 minutes or if I'm sitting in a waiting room, I'm on my phone, I'm on Instagram, I'm on something. Like I can't just sit, which is bad. I know. I admit it. Admitting you have a problem is the first step. But I would just love to try a detox where I didn't look at Instagram and to see how much time I'd have back and what I actually filled that time with.
Totally. I will say it looks like I'm on social media way more than I actually am.
Yeah, first of all, I admire you, Jen, and it's so appreciative that you asked us to be on this. And it's always fun to spend some time in the podcast world with you. And what Stephanie's saying, yeah, I agree. I think, I don't know if anybody else does this, but I have like, it's like OCD because I go on my phone and like, I have to check my text, my email, then Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. Like I have like a order of events that happens every time I open my phone. And I'm like, am I the only one that does this? And then I'm like,
we all do.
But I will tell you, because of the stories features, I kind of stopped scrolling and I kind of only watch stories. But yes, I think it is like, what else can I be doing right now? And, I think I've coined 2023 the year of me, but I think part of that is like, when you pay attention to yourself outside of the internet sphere of this alternate universe we like live in most of the day, it's like kind of getting back to like, who am I and what makes me happy? What inspires actual feelings in me instead of this kind of zombie state that I'm in on the social media. So if we come back to feelings, I know I feel more feelings in the real world than I do as a zombie on social media. Yes. Even though social media is very influential, those feelings are not even based in reality. So
yeah. I think this just means we have to do another episode to continue this conversation.
Yeah. And also another dinner with drinks to get some more fodder for the conversation.
Or like another therapy session and tell each other how beautiful we are with or without makeup, regardless of what we're eating.
Exactly.
And then we can put a story on there about it.
Right. Perfect. All right. Is it time for our nutrition nugget? I think it is.
Yes.
Okay. This week, we're talking about heartburn, or really actually heartburn and GERD. Okay. So this also fits really well into our perception versus reality conversation for today. So fill in the blank. You guys chime in. People think, what is heartburn? Like, what have we been told the cause of heartburn is?
Acid reflux.
High acid foods and things.
Yeah. So we've been told it's too much acid.
Yeah.
And then we're prescribed or recommended to take what?
Antacid.
Yeah. Antacids. Okay. So here's the thing. This is not reality. So, okay, let's set the stage for a second. Heartburn is one of the most common symptoms reported in the United States. I've heard somewhere between 13 and 15 million people experience it almost daily. And it may be even as many as 60 million people who experience it monthly. The more serious acid reflux is when it's chronic and then diagnosed as gastroesophageal reflux disease. That's GERD, G-E-R-D. And that It's like the most common digestive disorder in the United States. Second digestive disorder is IBS. Okay. Essentially, what people experience is like a burning sensation in the chest, and gone untreated, it can have serious implications because your stomach has a lining to protect the rest of your system from the acid. Your esophagus, the walls of your esophagus are much more fragile, if you will, right? They're much more sensitive. So it can cause ulcerations, cancer of the esophagus, like consequences are real. Okay. We've been told that it's caused by stomach acid traveling up the esophagus, and we're recommended to take the antacids, whether over the counter is like Tums, right? Prescriptions like Zantac. And the idea is that these medications neutralize stomach acid or slow or stop the secretion of stomach acid. So if you look at GERD from an integrative medicine approach, and you review the science and the research, what we actually see is that GERD and heartburn are not caused by high stomach acid. Rather, it's a weakness of the sphincter that's between the stomach and the esophagus. So this is called the lower esophageal sphincter, the LES. So proper function is that this sphincter allows for liquid and food to go into the stomach, and all other times it's closed unless you're burping. It opens so that you can burp. But that's the proper lower esophageal sphincter function, is it only opens at those times. So what's more interesting is that the amount of stomach acid doesn't matter if that sphincter is functioning properly. We're going to come back to that in a second. The other key point is that the medications like the antacids also don't cure heartburn, right? And it's wild when you consider the fact that 20% of adults regularly use acid-lowering drugs like proton pump inhibitors, PPIs. And we know this, that they don't cure it, because as many as 70% of people experience no benefit from taking PPIs, according to studies. Plus, they can actually make the underlying condition worse because the underlying condition is actually low stomach acid. I know. Okay. So it's not too much stomach acid. It's low stomach acid. The incidence of heartburn and GERD increases with age, corresponding to the body's natural decrease in stomach acid with age. So one study looked at men and women 65 years of age and older and found that stomach acid production was reduced by about 30%. Some of the participants also had a condition that's marked by little or no stomach acid. So if the true cause was too much stomach acid, then we would see incidences of heartburn and GERD decrease with age. But that's not what we see. We see it increase with age. Okay. Only in rare instances is excessive stomach acid production the case, and that's called Zollinger-Ellison syndrome. Okay. Then some people supplement with what's called HCl or pepsin, which raise stomach acid secretion, and people report that their symptoms resolve. Right? So they say they report reduced or eliminated heartburn symptoms and improved digestion. So of course, talk to your doctor, talk to your pharmacist, but I think it's interesting to note. Okay. Adding insult to injury, right? The typical recommendations for treating heartburn temporarily relieve the symptoms, but like we said, they don't solve the real problem, the underlying cause. And their potential side effects are significant. So they can increase our risk of heart attacks, dementia, kidney disease, and even death. Plus, increased risk of deteriorating gut health. So follow me on this. Stomach acid plays a critical role in proper digestion, right? It helps us break down the food. It kills the bad bacteria and yeast and parasites. Without enough stomach acid to digest our food, food is left sitting in the stomach, which can lead to acid reflux and also creates the possibility for bacterial and yeast overgrowth. So what we do want to do is focus on healthy digestion, support optimal pH levels, and look at habits that can support better function of that lower esophageal sphincter. If you're eating inflammatory foods, eating foods that you know don't agree with you, if you have any gut infections like SIBO or H. pylori, even stress, they can increase the likelihood of heartburn symptoms. So it's important to note that bacterial overgrowth causes bloating. Bloating then puts pressure on that sphincter, causing it to malfunction. Okay, low stomach acid, which happens, right, because the true cause of reflux, right, creates the perfect condition for the bacteria to grow. And then we have this extra gas and this extra pressure on the sphincter, and then the sphincter doesn't function properly. It's like this cycle. So we want to keep acid in the stomach to help prevent bacterial overgrowth. Normally, stomach acid, right, inhibits bacterial overgrowth. The stomach has a pH of like 3 or less, which is pretty acidic. So bacteria can't survive for longer than like a few minutes. When stomach acid decreases, the overall pH of the stomach rises, bacteria begins to reproduce. Bacteria overgrowth as a result of low stomach acid then does two things, right? It either restricts the carbohydrate breakdown and absorption or creates a buildup of gas. Those things increase the pressure against the sphincter, driving the forces behind acid reflux and GERD. It is a vicious cycle. So reducing the intake of inflammatory foods, spicy foods, fried foods, alcohol, instances of overeating. We don't want to recline after eating. All these things can help. And then depending on your body, because everyone is different, you might want to look at low FODMAP foods, right? We did a nutrition nugget on FODMAP a while ago. It might be a good idea to look at digestive enzymes. Steph, by the way, that's what we did with you. Do you remember this? I'm now calling you out. Sorry.
Yes. No, you're saying this episode and I'm like, yep, suffer. Well, I used to suffer a lot more with heartburn. But like you said, I've learned to sort of control it with diet. My doctor prescribed me antacids and I told him, I said, I don't want to take these. Like, I want to try to control it with diet and lifestyle. And I would say for the past few years, it's been a lot better. I have a flare up every now and then, but like, I know now why. I know what triggers it. So I'm like, yeah, I ate that spicy food, or like, yeah, I ate late at night and then laid down. So like, of course it's going to trigger it. Or I had like pizza late at night with like the tomato sauce, like bothering my stomach.
Yeah. And we did the digestive enzymes for you and that helped.
Yeah, it did. It definitely helped. It definitely helped when I would like suffer from it like almost nightly.
Yeah.
Question real fast. Is this why they say it's good to take a walk after you eat?
Partly.
Okay.
There's a lot of reasons for that.
Okay.
Yeah. It's like part of that is also postprandial glucose. So like your blood sugar after you eat. But yes, this is also a piece of that. So look at your digestive enzymes, right? You could potentially do that. You may want to look at how you can foster and replenish the good bacteria in the gut and help repair the intestinal lining. Work with a practitioner on this. We've discussed before prebiotics, probiotics, peribiotics, or like a postbiotic. I'll put a link in the show notes to the digestive enzymes. I love them for when I feel like I've just eaten too much. It's like 10 minutes and I feel better. So I'll give you guys that link. Questions on all the other things, feel free to reach out or talk to your healthcare provider. But that's it, guys. That's the bottom line on heartburn and GERD. They are not a function of too much acid. Rather, it's more likely to be too little acid and malfunctioning of the lower esophageal sphincter. So your antacid medications, whether prescription or over the counter, are more likely to exacerbate the issue long term. And you probably best be served to look at your habits, your food choices, and some key supplementation to resolve the issue, not just put a Band-Aid on it. Steph, Beth, any questions or anything to add?
I mean, there was a lot of wealth of information in this episode. I'm excited to replay it and write some notes.
I know.
Thank you.
Yeah. I mean, heartburn, it's annoying when it happens. It's not comfortable. Like it feels uncomfortable, But to your point, Beth, going for a walk after you're eating, I would just recommend anybody out there that suffers from heartburn, like wait 30 minutes before you lay down. I have a bad habit of eating like, dinner and being tired after a long day and being like, I'm just gonna like lay on the couch. And then that's
not great.
Yeah. I pay for that later.
My sister once described heartburn as nausea of the throat.
Oh.
I was like, okay. Anyway, well, thank you both for being here. Just appreciate you both so much.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
We'll be back.
Yes. As always, everybody, I'm your host, Jenn Trepeck. Connect with me on social media, Instagram, dare I say, connect with me on social media after this episode, all the places. I am at Jenn Trepeck, JENNTREPECK. Our website, asaladwithasideoffries.com. Wherever you want, send a message. I want to hear your takeaways, your ideas, what questions you have. This is also the easiest way to learn more about working with me as your health coach. And if you are not already a member, please join our membership. Go to glow.fm/saladwithasideoffries. It supports this podcast and this community, but most of all, it truly supports your health. You'll get this week's article, How to Stay Healthy While Staying Social, and the recipe for healthier soy garlic ginger chicken wings. So until next week, or really always, remember that perception is usually not reality. We're just hardwired for judgment, which means we want to recognize when it shows up, name what we're feeling, and intentionally choose our next move, whatever you want that to be. Well, friends, that's it for today's episode of Salad with a Side of Fries. Congratulations for making yourself and your health a priority. Thanks so much for joining us. Be sure to click subscribe or follow on your favorite podcast platform. Share us with a friend, and we'll be back next week. Always remember, you deserve it, and you are worth it. Happy healthy.